Most overdoses are witnessed, but some people are afraid to call 911. Waiting or abandoning an overdose victim is the worst possible response. The Good Samaritan law protects you. No one and no work site is safe from the possibility of encountering opiate overdose, and this makes preparedness of the utmost importance. Make the call, save a life. If anything is unclear, come see me. I'm Adam Renko, Director of Emergency Management for the City of Waterbury, and I'm here to help.
Good evening, everybody. The date is May 11th, 2021. It is 6:05 p.m. and we're going to call this meeting of the Diversity Committee's Governance Subcommittee to order. Can we have a roll call?
Chairman Diaz.
Present.
Co-Chair Beeman.
Here.
Sabira Gordon. Jenny Ray Clay.
Here.
Marguerite Bowen. The advisors, Pastor Hobson and Althea Marshall. Brooke.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Spectacular. So, needless to say, I haven't gotten, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was finalizing subcommittee leadership. Based on our last board meeting, I guess we have to also publicize the subcommittee meetings. I'm not sure how we can do so with regard to scheduling between the regular meeting and the subcommittee meeting. So I kind of wanted to get everybody's take on that. What might be a good way to go about doing that? Jenny Ray?
I was thinking that maybe we could schedule it all in one day, but have breakout rooms so that all the committees could meet. So I know you can go into different rooms on Zoom, and maybe we could pick a day that's kind of the best day. And then all the committees come on and then they go to their respective rooms and have their meeting. I don't know if that's possible, if they have to be publicized.
Mr. Chair, if I may offer comment through you.
Yes, you
Madam President, it's interesting. Desiree and I were actually having that same conversation just a few moments ago. So we're following up with our IT team to see about the breakout rooms, and then just see how members of the public, if they were seeking to tune in, would be able to maneuver through the different breakout groups. But I think that's a great idea, trying to get all the subcommittees in one evening. I think that'd be most effective.
Yes.
Good evening. Hi, Mac. That's a great idea. You can set the breakout rooms where people can join manually. You can assign them, but leave in the settings that people can join manually. And I guess that could give the public who's participating. Oh, but they're coming in through YouTube, right? Not necessarily through the Zoom link.
Yeah. So that was the part that we were trying to, seek how we could ensure that the public meeting requirements were fixed. So Desiree and I were planning on meeting with Dan Arapino and our IT team tomorrow to kind of further discuss that.
Gotcha. Yep. No, gotcha.
Well, that's brilliant. If we can do that, I think it would be easier for everybody to manage. So I think that's a genius idea if the IT team thinks that can be feasible. Then we don't have to schedule all these different meetings and, overburden the city staff. Co-Chair Beeman?
Yes. For the subcommittees, are we blocking time for the public to speak as well? I was thinking if we are doing that for each subcommittee, that might be an issue, a conflict, if members of the public wanted to speak at multiple committee meetings.
Jenny Ray?
At our last meeting, we said we would not have the public speak at the subcommittee meetings, that they could bring their issues to the general meeting, because it could make those meetings last very, very long. if multiple people wanted to speak. So we do have public speaking time at our overall meeting, and it would be probably something that's probably best to bring to the entire council or committee.
I agree. I think that's a great plan. It allows the subcommittees to focus on their work.
Excellent. No, that's great. Yeah, because we won't get any work done if everyone has so many ideas and so many issues that they're familiar with, and I think we would get inundated, and we wouldn't really be able to get any work done. I think the main thing is we want to try to at least get the ball rolling with the work, which is the first thing. So I think the great first step is to see if we can do the breakout rooms. And with regard to the subcommittee leadership, and Mac, maybe you can help me with this. I was thinking maybe a more expeditious way to choose our leadership could be like each temporary subcommittee leader could maybe shoot out an email through the mayor's office asking who would be interested in serving as the president, and maybe we could do like a vote through email just to get somebody appointed so we can get some movement on getting that piece resolved.
Yeah, I'll double check in terms of, again, just the public meeting requirements. Perhaps what we could do is send out an email to everyone on the committee, letting them know that finalizing the chairs of the respective subcommittees would take place at this coming full meeting of the committee. And, hopefully we'd have a critical mass of people there. And, say there's a subcommittee that, perhaps only has 2 representatives, then, perhaps one of those folks that are there takes on that responsibility of being the chair. Open to any ideas, though. I think if it's just an organizational email in terms of trying to define, who the chairs are, I think we'd be fine. But I think there's any number of ways we can go about doing that.
So that was one. That's definitely one possibility. Another idea I was gonna have was each temporary chair could reach out to the individual members and say, hey, are you interested in serving? Then at least we would have somebody that we would have on deck. Because let's say we have 3 people at the meeting saying we're all interested, then it might make it a little awkward.
Yeah, I think that's great. Actually, I mean, one thing that we could do is we could have the temporary chairs reach out to the respective membership of their committees, ultimately identify a nomination and then put on the agenda of the next full committee meeting, a vote to confirm those nominations as the respective chairs, just to, keep the transparency there.
What do you think about that, Mr. Beeman?
I like the idea of having the temporary chair reach out to the committee.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? All right, I think that might be a good approach just to get it done quicker, because I know that people are going to be wondering, all right, we've been trying to get our structure complete for some time now, and it'd be nice to get it done so we could start working on some issues and produce some fruit, so to speak. Anyone else have any other thoughts on that?
So I just wanted to seek clarification. Does that mean that you'll be moving forward with the temporary chairs emailing each subcommittee members, essentially finding that nomination, and that will be put on the agenda for next Wednesday's meeting?
Yeah, I think that'd be wise, because then we can say, all right, we have our people. And so last meeting we had to we come up with the plan and the structure, and we have that. Now it would be nice to be able to let the public know that now we have the people who are going to be leading the subcommittees, and we can start the work. I think that would show movement and completion with regard to the initial organizational structure. And it's important to have those people, and because then they're going to have to work on the second part of our agenda, which is getting our nomination committee together to replace the vacancies. And that way at our next general meeting, we can say, all right, we have our nominations committee because we have our chairs of each subcommittee, and then we can work on replacing the vacancies. And at the same time, the subcommittees can start to brainstorm some initial steps, unless because I don't believe everyone's going to be relying on us to create the research structure. Is that my understanding correct?
You said the resource structure,
Research.
research structure.
Be gathering data and all that for the whatever topic each subcommittee would want to address. So like, let's say if the
I hear you.
the public safety piece, our first thing we want to do is see if the new officers that are hired are going to get any cultural competency training and any mental health evaluations, things like that. We could start working on that issue in a way that maybe the group feels is most efficient. It's just a thought.
Is your question whether to leave it up to the subcommittee to decide their structure or what their deliverable will be? Or are you asking, should our governance committee decide on the deliverable of the subcommittees?
Essentially both, because now that we have the subcommittees created, we have to figure out how are they going to, number one, identify the deliverable. And this is why I wish Sabira was on the call, because she's already done a lot of this type of work at the Capitol, where we would identify the indicators based on what the community thinks is needed. And then we could work on the deliverable. So let's say, okay, we want to see if we could put in place a policy for, let's say, hiring new police officers. Okay, well, what do we want? We want to make sure that they have some cultural competency training. They have some, make sure that there's nothing in their background that would raise a red flag, or, make sure their mental health is in order, things of that nature. And we could do the same for the education piece and the economic piece and the health piece. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Jenny, right?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, what we talked about was the community conversations that we had last year. There's apparently a lot of data and information about community concerns, and we were going to start with that list of information, break it out to the various subcommittees, and let the subcommittees go through what the public has already spoken about to be their concerns from the community conversations that the mayor held last summer. And then the subcommittee would then do further research on those topics to prioritize them as a subcommittee.
Well, that's an excellent idea. Then we already know what our deliverable would be once we have the and I believe we were supposed to receive, I don't know, but for this meeting, maybe for the general meeting, notes on, because I wasn't privy to the public hearings, so I'm not sure what was discussed. Is that information recorded somewhere?
So there was tallied notes taken that I believe I sent out. If you didn't receive, I can also just go back and resend it. Maybe it was a digital issue or error.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing those notes from the community meetings, but
yeah, that would be helpful if we had them, because then perhaps the governance committee can review the topics, and then we could disperse them to each group based on the subject matter. So let's say there was something on public housing, we can, shift that over to that subcommittee. There's something on the police, we can shift it over to that one. But I think that's a brilliant place to start.
so the meetings were broken down. So the first meeting was with the police, with the police chief. And so that whole day was dedicated to police accountability. Then the second meeting, I believe, was dedicated to education with the superintendent. The third meeting, I don't know if it was the third or the fourth, but Maureen Platt was, there was a day with her talking about criminal justice and reform. And then there was, I don't remember what the fourth one was, but there was another one. So it should already be broken down in accordance to the focus of the day for each of those committees.
Yes, if I may, I believe the first meeting was with Mayor O'Leary. I do believe Chief Spagnolo joined, and then the following Tuesday, June 23rd, Chief Spagnolo hosted, with the focus being race and the role of policing in Waterbury. On June 30th, Waterbury Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Ruffin, joined with a focus on the critical importance of diversity and social justice in Waterbury Public Schools. And then on July 7th, State's Attorney Maureen Platt joined and hosted a town hall on race and the role of the judicial system.
So I did send that out. It was a PDF attached to the email that went out when you guys decided which subcommittees each member would be assigned to. I'm just going to re-forward that same email so you can be on the lookout for it, and it will be coming from the diversity committee info@waterburyct.org.
You know what, Desiree, I actually do have it here. Let's see. Well, let's
And Desiree, I'll reach out to you because whoever is emailing is using 2 different email addresses for me. So I get some things at one email address and some things at another. So it gets a little confusing, but I'll send you the absolute email to use for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a very detailed list here of topics here. Let me can I share my screen here? No, I can't. I'm disabled. Okay.
No, I can share that with you. Well, part of me that wasn't intentional. One moment.
That's okay.
Are you co-host now?
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so very deep. Can you guys see my screen?
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right. So this is very detailed
level
list. All right. There we go. Pros and cons of police and school, psychological exam. All right. Body cameras. This is great. Okay, well, we definitely have plenty of subject matter to work with. Let's see.
And is that the full list of all the discussions from the summer?
Yes, so those links that you've seen were links to the recordings. I'm not sure if it's accessible externally. You should be able to click on them and listen through it, but the tallied, the things that you just seen, the detailed things are all that was mentioned from callers, given the number of callers that called in.
Okay, so the primary discussion was around, police or criminal justice reform.
That was one of the, so Attorney Diaz kind of scrolled through, but each of the 4 forums that had the different speakers that were previously mentioned, they were each regarding a certain topic. So one was, police reform. With Dr. Ruffin, they talked about the education and department in the system. So kind of circulated those things.
Okay, so the first one we have here is Mayor O'Leary on the role of local government in combating systematic racism and implicit bias. That was the first town hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about it, how it fits into our subcommittees that we created. So I'm thinking that the information we have here will be relevant to our criminal justice, police reform subcommittee, and I guess education. I don't see much for economic development, housing, or healthcare. But yeah, it looks like 2 of the committees could use this.
I think you're right. Let's see, race and the role of judicial system, court system, criminal justice, law enforcement. All right, so professional development learning plan, that might be good for the economic subcommittee. Let's see. Pros and cons, social distancing. I see your point, Co-Chair Beeman. It's heavy towards maybe 2 of the subcommittees, and we don't have a whole lot for the other we don't have a whole lot for the public health.
I mean, and I think that's fine. Well, we could find other resources for, you know, places to start on economic development and public health. I'm sure we have, you know, other research that has been done here in Waterbury that we could tap into.
So what I guess what I'm struggling with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jenny Ray.
I was just going to say, so the folks who signed up for the various committees have an interest and or background in those areas that they signed up for. So the folks who are on the health committee or economic development and housing committee, I think they would most definitely be able to come up with some topics to address just to start, since things were, and then again, everything kind of relates to everything. You know, each of these topics touch, or these committees will touch each other. And so some of the data and information that is listed in this big list of information that we have, I'm sure you can take it and look at some of it from a different perspective or a different lens. So I think, you know, I think we have information, some of it already provided, and then some of it would be our own intellectual property and or background and expertise and experiences that we bring to each of our committees.
Agreed.
So I guess the question still lies in that, would the subcommittees identify the deliverable, which would be a policy recommendation to the mayor's administration and the Board of Ed and the Board of Aldermen? Would they be?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they would bring it to the, so they would identify them, prioritize them, then bring them to the committee as a whole. And then the co-chairs, I think, would then bring those, you know, at the end, our document, if we're going to, you know, submit a major plan, or we're going to submit a plan in pieces. You know, some committees may come up with recommendations faster than others because some of them are just very obvious. So I think that's another thing we have to take into consideration. So how does the plan get from the subcommittee, because the overall committee has to vote on it. So I don't think the subcommittee can vote and then that's it. I think it has to be a discussion with the entire committee because, like I said, as we talk about housing and economic development, we talk about policing, you know, all of those things touch each other. And those other subcommittees certainly will have some things to add and or to tweak out of or for, you know, the committees. And so that's why I think it has to be a discussion of the entire diversity committee, a vote, and then the co-chairs go forward with each of the subcommittees' plans or an entire plan, however we figure that part out.
What do you all think of this? This subcommittee, obviously they're going to receive this list. They're going to get an idea of what the community wanted addressed, and they all come up with, let's say, their first potential policy recommendation, and they submit it to the board. And then we all say, you know what, this sounds like a great idea. Like right off of looking at this list, the first thing that I think on the law enforcement, for example, they mentioned body cams. I think that's a very feasible policy recommendation. I think the only caveat would be maybe the cost and storage. But I think, for example, that might be a good initial policy recommendation. For education, perhaps they can deal with the issue of police schooling. And if that's something that's, or schooling, I'm sorry, police in schools. Perhaps the subcommittees can be given the ability to come up with a policy recommendation, and then they present it to the full board, and we're all like, yeah, go ahead with it. And then they can, you know, put together, do some research, and then draft a potential policy recommendation for approval for the board to send off to the powers that be. It's just an idea, but I think that, I guess that's what I'm trying to feel out here.
That sounds like what Jenny Ray said, right? I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we are.
This sounds exactly like what she said.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So then So then what we could do for the next meeting is, you know, we have we can all speak to the members of the subcommittees, everyone who is a temporary leader, appoint a chair, and then we can recommend that this is the way that we start our work. We take a look at the list, and you can use other information and come up with a potential policy recommendation that you would want to submit. The whole board approves it, and then that's when they start their research and putting together the recommendation. I think it's a great initial approach. I remember, I mean, Rome wasn't built in the day, so we can always tweak it and amend it. Or Jenny, right?
Through the chair. It's also important to be to really do heavy research and to make sure that, you know, the subcommittees have an opportunity to speak to all parties. Although, and this is just an example, although body cameras are listed as a priority, you still have to make sure that you're speaking with the police department. So that subcommittee should call the police chief or whoever the representative would be to their meeting to ask them questions about body cams. Where are you with it? So you may not need a policy if the body cams are coming in August. That might be like the low-hanging fruit. So we say, okay, well, fine. You know, that's something we don't need to send a policy for because it's already been set. The budget is already there, and those are on the way. So we have to kind of, you know, like I said, I think prioritize and then make sure that we're doing the proper research to make sure and talking to the stakeholders and those involved to make sure that, you know, we're not tripping over and or putting something else, not in danger, but, you know, putting something else in a maybe in a different spot than it needs to be. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, if the train's already on the tracks, no need to start it all over again. I totally get it. So I'm just trying to think. So maybe the subcommittee coming up with ideas for policy recommendations and submitting them to the board for approval might be the wrong way to go about it.
I think it's setting priorities, not policy recommendations just yet. So it's taking your data that you have available, and if you don't have enough information or concerns of what, you know, folks want, it's collecting that, you know, you'd have to do some research to find out what are those issues that the residents are looking at. And so setting the priority for what you're going to be researching and investigating. And then and then I think the committee says, okay, because you say, well, we're doing body cameras, and then someone else says, you know, well, we're doing, you know, again, things will touch each other and they'll match. So if one committee's working on something, it may positively affect another committee's work. You know, it could negatively affect another committee's work, but that may not be a bad thing. And so once the kind of the order of what we're going to be looking at is prioritized, then we do, you know, the committees will set up and determine what policies are needed or need to be changed, created or changed. And then the full committee would take a vote on those policy changes to bring to the governing body.
Okay. So essentially they do the work first, and then when they find, all right, this is a good one to present to the board, after the work has been done, that's when we would present it, the priority to the board for approval to send off, I guess.
Yeah, that's my suggestion.
Yeah. I think an example of a subcommittee proposal, maybe, let's say for our economic development, maybe we propose that we would want to look into hiring disparities based on race in the city of Waterbury. And then we see if the full committee is okay with us proceeding as for that to be the issue that we're researching. And then if we're approved, we go and research it. So that's the way I envision it, us proposing what issue we want to tackle, getting agreement from the entire committee, and then the subcommittee, if they approve, the subcommittee moves forward with researching that specific issue. And then when we research that issue, we propose a deliverable to solve that issue.
I agree.
Okay. So the subcommittees are gonna determine amongst themselves, because they're the people with the, this is where the work, where the rubber, I see, Althea's hand up. Go ahead.
So I just want to just be clear. So for every topic the subcommittee wants to research, they have to get approval from the committee of the whole first before they go research it?
No.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. So it wouldn't be, it's what issue we want to research. So if we say which issue we want to tackle that's related to economic development or any other subcommittee, we're getting an agreement on which issue under that big umbrella we would like to tackle, and then get permission from the committee, the full committee, and then we move forward with trying to create a deliverable that solves that issue.
And it doesn't have to be one issue. It could be a priority of issues. So it may be 3 issues that we see in subcommittees that need to be addressed. And so we prioritize them. So the, let's say the housing committee is going to, economic and housing committee is going to look at these 3, topics. It's going to be affordability. Maybe we need, first-time homebuyer programs. Maybe it's substandard living, and then maybe it's, I don't know, say rent control. So those are the 3 topics that, and this is how they fit together. And then those priorities are brought to the overall committee. And it's basically for conversation. And so that we all know what direction each of the subcommittees is going to go in. And like I said, if one committee is doing something that may have a positive effect, at least that those 2 subcommittees can share information or feed off of each other. But if we don't know what each of the committees are doing and looking at, then we're going to be lost. And I think we'll be behind the 8 ball. So it's more about communication and clarity and transparency.
And to add to that,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
And to add to that, there's pre-research and the post-research. Yeah, before the subcommittee begins talking about a topic and identifying which topic they think would be of interest or would fit that priority list, there would have to be some pre-research for people to determine which ones they think are the priorities. But then the post-research is where the hard work comes in. That's going to be the deep research to identify what deliverable you want to come up with. So there is pre-research and post-research, but I think the heavy amount of research comes after you decide what issue you want to research.
I agree with that. I guess process is extremely important. I agree with the point about clear communication and focus, as you had said, Jenny. I believe the topics have already been approved by way of the names of the committees. And so I agree with Andrew that before you prioritize, we need to get data related to those particular topics, and then go from there. I guess my concern is that there isn't, it's like, so there isn't this slow process of kind of getting to, the other side of the priorities and beginning to do the work. And the reason why I'm saying that is, with the reality of the American Rescue Plan funding that's coming to cities, and cities having resources to put in place, specifically Waterbury, I can only speak to right now, to potentially address some of these priorities. And we have a very small window where those dollars can be used to begin to make the change, i.e. the increasing homeownership. As Jenny mentioned, I just want us to keep that in mind, that, we're moving with the sense of time in mind, and not overly complicating the process of getting to the priorities. Because I think right now, the four of us could probably name 5 key priorities that are an issue. We know the data and statistics around it. For example, you know, Cherry Lamb and the push for more people of color, and especially right now, even hearing the chief talk about that with the department, we know that's an issue. We know what the numbers are. I don't want us to get stuck in what we already know, because I think we have an opportunity to actually address it, because the city will have the resources to respond to our recommendations. Of course, if they so choose and it's voted on, but at least we know there's resources that will be available between now and I believe 2023, is it 2024? The money has to be spent. So I just want to keep that in our mind, that we actually have a very unique time in our city's history where there's actually dollars to make an impact in these areas that we've noted. And that's not, I don't know if we'll ever have this kind of opportunity again.
Comes around every 100 years, right?
In that case, if we think we already have the data, could it be shared? Because right now, all I saw was the list of the conversations that happened over the summer during these committee meetings. So, I mean, during the city public meetings. So if knowing which topics and which subgroups we have, if anybody on this call or anybody you know has data on these topics that you could share with each subcommittee, that could get us rolling right away. So I don't have any of this data, but I would love to have it and get started.
To the extent, yeah, that, you know, if you could ultimately, you know, narrow down, you know, specific data that you're seeking or data that would speak to a specific topic. You know, I know that I'd be happy to, you know, work with members of our teams and or reach out and serve as kind of a connective tissue to members, you know, of our community in terms of partners. So for example, I'm thinking in terms of health data, you know, it'd be great to go to the Greater Waterbury Health Partnership, you know, and seek to view their community health needs assessment. So to the extent that, you know, if members of this subcommittee, the committee as a whole, or the other subcommittees, as they begin talking and say, hey, you know, we'd really like to see data on the city of Waterbury's hiring practices, split up by Board of Ed and general government over the last 4 years. You know, that's a great request that I can then turn, and in this case, you know, seek to engage our human resources department to get that data for the committee. Does that make sense, Mr. Beeman?
I'll defer to Althea for that. Is that what you were thinking, as far as data that is readily available that the committee should have immediately as they get started?
Definitely, I think Mac went right to it for the health one, and as well, I think Cherry Lamb, who's actually a member of the committee of the whole, actually has some of that very specific data. So I do believe we have sources of information that can be utilized, accessed, that's accessible and be utilized by the committees to at least consider to begin to set its priorities. So yes, I think Mac was right on point. And I think accessing that should not be a challenge, because many of those entities, you know, have regular data reports that they deliver.
So, well, that's definitely something that we can have the subcommittees work on, you know, getting together and accessing. I think what I'm trying to accomplish for purposes of today's meeting are how we temporarily going to set a starting point. So I kind of liked the conversations on identifying potential topics in each subcommittee, and then, you know, presenting to the board, and then letting the subcommittee do the research. I think we could probably turn that around. I mean, even at the next, well, not at the next meeting. In the next meeting, we're going to appoint the leaders, but I mean, by the meeting after that, and everyone can start the research. I mean, you don't have to wait until the next meeting if people want to just reach out and, you know, identify certain areas where they can get data from. It's just a suggestion, I guess, but I want us to have something to present to the board next week, so we could say, all right, this is how we're going to start, and and then we can, we can build upon that.
I think it's important, if I may, for those subcommittees really to get together and begin conversating, begin communicating with each other, and the subcommittee members kind of putting out there what they know. Because, like you said, people they volunteered for these areas specifically based on, we asked them to have some knowledge, a passion, something to contribute to the group. So I think getting the subcommittees together as soon as possible, and deciding leadership and having those conversations is very, very important.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well, because if we wait for well, I'm sorry, Andrew, you were going to say something?
Yeah, do you want to just kind of like put a timeline together where, next meeting, we're appointing leaders, and then by a certain date in June, you have your subcommittee meetings. By a certain date in July, you submit your data request, and, just moving forward that way. And then you begin your project after you receive your data request.
I think that's perfect, actually. That way we're moving quickly, slowly, so to speak. Full disclosure, I'm the most impatient person on the planet Earth. So, but the Lord is working on me. I think that's great. So then at the next meeting, we'll appoint our leaders. And then for the June meeting, the subcommittees can present their potential topics and then start the research. And then by August, maybe present the first issue that they're going to prioritize after they complete their initial round of research. What do you think about that for a timeline?
Can we do September as the first round? Because you're coming into some, you're coming into summer, you're coming into vacations. So let's just try to give ourselves at least till September in case you have to miss or people get started late.
Okay, so we're going to have our leaders next week. And then in the June meeting, each subcommittee will present their potential topics. And then by September, submit the first issue that they're going to prioritize based on the research. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Is it possible that we can have a list of the members of the diversity committee with their names, their email addresses, and phone numbers? Because I agree to chair the economic development or economic opportunity and housing, and I would have loved to have reached out to my folks, but I don't have all of their contact information. I just kind of had a brief conversation with them about being a member of the subcommittee and talking to them about the leadership and how we have to select a chair for those for that committee. So if we can get a copy of the contact information for the members of the diversity committee, that would be very helpful.
Mac?
We'd be happy to help you with that, Madam President. I think it's a great opportunity to go through the list that we have right now, remove folks that are no longer involved, and we can get that information to you tomorrow. Desiree, we can touch base first thing tomorrow morning on that.
Okay, thank you.
And then on that topic, I just figured I'd flag, and Madam Chair, if you're on the call, I think it may be worth, and this is just a comment. I know there's the nominating committee, but to the extent that potentially there could be an agenda item for the committee meeting as a whole, asking for nominations for folks to potentially be appointed as members of the committee. I flagged for our two co-chairs Unfortunately, Jenny Fonseca, had to step down, due to demands in her life. So, I think it'd be great to the extent that nominations could be made by members of the committee at the next committee meeting as a whole. Those nominations could be brought to the mayor's attention, and a conversation with the co-chairs can take place.
I'm sorry, I had to step out. Yes, I agree with that approach, and I think we were looking to potentially, and I may have missed this, about Jackie Davis potentially serving as a full member on the committee. I'm not sure if that was discussed. She recently left the district and is now in another position, and with that new position may not be able to commit the time that might be required. So that's going to be an additional spot if that was actually one we were thinking of filling.
Okay, so we would need someone else for the law enforcement. And then we would also need another for the economic and housing, since Jenny's not available. So Jackie Davis and Jenny Fonseca are both probably going to be unavailable to serve going forward.
Yeah, Ms. Fonseca tendered her resignation from the board, and then I can call Jackie tomorrow. It sounds like Madam Chair has had some conversations, but could seek to gain a better understanding of what our availability will be moving forward. And then ultimately, so we had Dr. Gatling step down, Mr. Saunders step down, Ben Carr unfortunately was never able to join us, Ms. Fonseca. Is there anyone else I'm missing?
No, that should be it.
No, I think that's it.
Okay. So that being said, I think we at least have something to go forward with at the next meeting to get the work started. Once we get the positions, the leadership positions filled, because even if you don't have 5 on your subcommittee, some of the people on this list, well, all the people on this list have so much experience in what they're doing. We can start the work right away. I don't have a vast pool of nominees like a lot of my colleagues have on this call. So, I mean, I'm fine with people nominating people to well, let me back up for a second. So, if we get our leadership of each subcommittee approved, then we have the nominations committee, and that's a piece we could give to the nominations committee, and they can get the board filled back up.
So I just mentioned it last, I believe I mentioned it at the last meeting, but the ultimate power of appointment to the city boards and commissions lies with the mayor. So we'd want to take the nominations brought forward by members of the diversity committee to the mayor, and similar to how the initial committee was composed, the mayor will seek to meet with the 2 co-chairs to ultimately fill out the committee.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, we have that subcommittee. Let's delegate that responsibility to them. I don't want to overstep. Mr. Beeman.
Oh, I just put my thumbs up saying I understand and agree. I think Mac, Mac, don't let me speak for you, but it sounds like Mac's trying to say he wants an agenda item for next week's meeting for everybody that's on the committee to nominate somebody. Then he'll take those nominations and give them to the mayor. And so for this round, we do not need the nomination committee to get involved. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that was in terms of timeliness and being able to, get the committee back to full membership. With respect to the nominating committee, my suggestion was to add an agenda item at the next committee meeting as a whole, where members of the committee, if they have a nomination to bring forward, could bring forward a name for then ultimate consideration. Yeah, you spoke perfectly for me, Mr. Beeman.
And I think that's fair because we don't have a nomination committee ready yet. So we want to act now. That sounds like the best approach.
So Desiree, can you send out an email to the whole board asking them to come to the next meeting with potential nominations?
I can.
I see Althea's hands up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So my question I wanted to ask, I think possibly also includes Mac. As we think about these individuals we're nominating, we should keep in mind, especially with the, now that we're moving to subcommittees with a particular focus, that in many ways, when you're putting together a board or a committee of a whole, that you want to kind of have a profile. So should we be thinking of individuals with a level of expertise, experience, and knowledge relative to our focus areas so that it might allow for ease of transition onto the committee at this time?
Yeah.
I agree. I also think we also want to factor in the amount of time that they have. A lot of times we go, you know, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So we tend to go to the same workers, but a lot of people are spread thin. And I'll give you a personal example. Someone approached me about another board position, and I was a little reluctant because I'm at my max where I could do things with excellence. But I was able to find someone else who fit that role perfectly. So I think we want to keep that in mind as well, who has the expertise, but also has the time to spare, and they're not on 5 other boards. Because as you could see in the beginning, we had 22 fast, and it was a great list of people and talented people, but that list quickly shrunk because you know, a lot of them are doing a lot of other boards and activities. So I also just want everyone to be mindful of that as well. We definitely want the people with the background, but it would also be nice if they're not serving on too many other things so that they can give this the time it needs. Because I don't think people understand how much work this is going to take, especially when we start doing the research. That's when it's really going to get time consuming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me check for clarity on this one as well. Because we have 4 subcommittees, we want to be specific about which subcommittee we're trying to fill when we're looking for nominations. Is that correct? Because it sounds like the economic, looking at the list, the economic development and housing has enough people and we're full there. So as we think about nominations, we may be looking to fill the other boards that don't have 5 people. So Althea, I think, was that your ask? Are we looking for a specific skill set when we look for nominations?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm asking, just so that we have that balance and to fill out the subcommittees, but also the committee as a whole as well. So yes, sir.
So taking that into consideration, I have the list up in front of me. If you see my head bobbing a lot, it's because I got the dual screens. One to look at the documents, and then the other one to look at all of you wonderful people. We need 2 people for public health, and we're going to need 1 more now for law enforcement because Jackie Davis most likely will not be able to serve. So maybe we could keep that in mind, and Desiree, if you can include that in the email that we're looking for nominations, specifically 2 people with the public health piece and 1 that can help in the law enforcement piece. I think that'd be phenomenal. And then at the next meeting, they can nominate them, and then it's, you know, we pass that off to Mac in the mayor's office. How's that sound? Awesome. Excellent. Okay. Any other discussion on this? All right, great. So I'd like to entertain a motion that at the next meeting, we come forward with the individuals who are going to serve as the permanent chairs. All in favor?
So moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Spectacular. All right. Motion passes. Next, Well, I don't know if I need to make a motion for the nominating the individuals. I think that could just be an agenda item. Does that sound right, Mac?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, spectacular. So that's something that Althea and Pastor Reese can make sure is on the next agenda. And Desiree, we appreciate you sending out that email for us. That'd be spectacular.
I do want to just note, just a tidbit, it's Desiree.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to put that out to the committee.
My name gets butchered all the time, and I hate when I butcher other people's names, so I apologize. Desiree, got it. All right, and then the next item I'm going to need a motion on is that at next week, the subcommittees are to produce their first list of potential topics at the June meeting, followed by their research, and then they are to produce their first issue to prioritize at the September meeting.
You're asking for a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
All right. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, great. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right. Great. Motion passes. Okay, and with regard to the second topic on the agenda, it's the nominations committee, but essentially we're just going to, once we officially appoint the leaders, our nominating committee will be done, and they won't have any work as long as we can fill the vacancies at the next meeting. And then whenever there's a vacancy, that's when they can do whatever they need to do. That's something that we could tackle at a later date if necessary. That being said, we're on to the third issue in our agenda, which is any new business. Is there any new business that anyone would like to bring up with regard to governance? All right. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay.
Great job.
Oh, thank you. So does that mean that I can get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Great work, everybody. The temporary chairs will reach out to their people after, and Mac, you're gonna get us that list of the contact info tomorrow, correct?
First thing.
Spectacular. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Excellent meeting. You guys be safe. Pastor Hobson, what's going on? That's all right. Better late than never.
We'll get
Can I make a request before we go that the list, if possible, be set up in subcommittees so that we just, we know who's all on the committee. I know we have the list, but if they could just be broken down by subcommittees, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I do want to just, I'm so sorry. I do want to just say that it is broken up. It's whole committee with info, and then there's it's an Excel sheet within the page broken up into subcommittees.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I apologize, everyone.
That's all right. It's good to see you, Pastor. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I was doing better until a couple of minutes ago. Right. I said, man, this is a strange opening. My.
That's all right. You made the best entrance. That's all. Yeah, we're all about to go now and eat dinner. So, but it was good seeing you.
I just finished.
Nice.
You should know, Pastor Hobson, that we put you in charge of everything.
Oh, my.
It's good to delegate everything to the person not present, then they can't object, All right, everyone. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and everyone who's out there listening on YouTube, same thing. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
common myth about naloxone or Narcan, the medication that reverses an opioid overdose, is that giving it out encourages addiction or prevents people from seeking treatment. And that's just not true. Research studies have investigated these concerns and found that naloxone just saves lives. And every life saved is a chance for recovery. So don't be scared to keep it on you. It can and does save lives every single day. If you aren't sure where to get Narcan, come see me. I'm Vin Valdez, and I'm part of the Waterbury Health Department Prevention Unit.